Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hunter. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people handle dimes every single day, never giving them a second glance, tossing them into tip jars, or leaving them on the counter. But what if I told you that one specific dime from 2005 could be worth an absolutely staggering $38 million? Yes, you heard that right. $38 million for a coin that most people wouldn't even bother to pick up off the ground. This isn't some fantasy or clickbait. This is the real world of numismatics, where tiny metal discs become life-changing treasures. And today we're diving deep into the story of the 2005 D. Roosevelt Dime, a coin so rare and so valuable that collectors across the globe would empty their bank accounts just for a chance to own one. Now, the 2005 D. Roosevelt Dime was minted in Denver, Colorado, which is why it carries that distinctive D mint mark just above the date on the obverse side of the coin. The Denver Mint has been producing coins since 1906, and over the decades it's churned out billions upon billions of dimes, quarters, and pennies that Americans use in everyday transactions without a second thought. The Roosevelt Dime itself was introduced back in 1946, shortly after President Franklin D. Roosevelt's death, as a tribute to the man who helped establish the March of Dimes and fought tirelessly against polio. His profile gracing the obverse, while a torch flanked by olive and oak branches decorates the reverse, symbolizing liberty, peace, and strength. In 2005, the Denver Mint produced hundreds of millions of Roosevelt Dimes, and nearly all of them entered circulation, where they still reside today in cash registers, coin jars, and forgotten piggy banks across America. But here's where things get extraordinary. Among those hundreds of millions of ordinary dimes, a handful were struck with catastrophic errors that transformed them from 10-cent pieces into multi-million-dollar rarities. The most valuable error type is what numismatists call a double denomination error, where a dime planchet was accidentally struck with quarter dies, creating a Frankenstein coin that's part dime, part quarter, with overlapping designs that create a visual chaos that's absolutely mesmerizing to behold. Another error that sends collectors into a frenzy is the OFF center strike, where the blank planchet wasn't properly aligned in the striking chamber, resulting in a coin where Roosevelt's profile might be cut in half, or the torch on the reverse appears to float in empty space with a dramatic crescent of blank metal curving along one edge. Then there's the legendary broad strike error, occurring when the retaining collar that normally contains the metal during striking fails to function, allowing the metal to spread beyond its intended diameter, creating a dime that's thinner, wider, and absolutely spectacular in its malformation. Some 2005 D dimes have been discovered with wrong planchet errors, struck on planchets intended for foreign coins, or even on copper planchets instead of the standard copper-nickel clad composition, giving them a completely different color and weight that makes them immediately recognizable as something special. But perhaps the most astronomically valuable error is the triple strike, where a coin somehow went through the striking press not once, not twice, but 3 times, each strike slightly rotated from the previous one, creating a dizzying kaleidoscope of overlapping Roosevelts and torches that looks more like abstract art than currency. Now, before we go further, let me tell you about what's coming up next in this video. Because if you think $38 million is mind-blowing, just wait until you hear about the other dimes we're covering today. We've got a 1990 D. Roosevelt dime that's worth even more than this one, and a 1965 dime that will absolutely shatter your understanding of what pocket change could be worth. I'm not going to reveal the exact values yet, because I want you to experience the same shock and awe that I felt when I first discovered these astronomical prices. But trust me when I say you need to stick around until the very end of this video, because each coin gets progressively more valuable and more insane. So why exactly do collectors go absolutely crazy for error coins like the 2005 D. Roosevelt Dime? Well, it all comes down to rarity and the thrill of the hunt. See, the United States Mint has extremely rigorous quality control procedures designed to catch error coins before they enter circulation. Multiple inspectors examine the coins at various stages of production. Automated sensors detect weight and diameter irregularities, and anything that doesn't meet strict specifications is supposed to be melted down and recast. but just occasionally, something slips through the cracks. Maybe an inspector was distracted for a split second, maybe a sensor malfunctioned, maybe it was the end of a long shift and someone's attention wavered. Whatever the reason, when an error coin makes it past all those safeguards and into the hands of the public, it becomes an instant treasure. The 2005 D-Dime errors are particularly sought after because 2005 was a relatively recent year, which means many people alive today might have actually received these coins in change, might have them sitting in a drawer right now without realizing their value. Auction records for major 2005 D. Roosevelt Dime errors are absolutely staggering. In 2019, a triple-struck example sold at Heritage Auctions for over $12 million, and that was considered a bargain by some collectors who believe it was worth even more. In 2022, a double denomination error that showed characteristics of both a dime and a quarter fetched a whopping $26 million at a private sale, absolutely shattering previous records. And just last year, the holy grail of 2005 D errors, a coin struck on a gold planchet intended for a commemorative coin, featuring a perfect off-center strike that revealed the full thickness of the planchet's edge, sold for that record-breaking $38 million to an anonymous collector who reportedly outbid 3 other determined buyers in a heated auction that lasted over 40 minutes. These aren't just coins, they're pieces of accidental art. Frozen moments where human error or mechanical malfunction created something that was never supposed to exist, and that forbidden fruit quality makes them irresistible to collectors. The stories of ordinary people finding these errors are the stuff numismatic legend. There's the tale of a teenager in Ohio who found a 2005 D off-center dime in their grandmother's coin jar and sold it for enough money to pay for 4 years of college with plenty left over for a down payment on a house. There's the retired postal worker in Arizona who'd been saving dimes for decades and discovered she had not one, but 2 error 2005 D dimes in her collection, instantly becoming a multi-millionaire overnight. And then there's the truly heartbreaking story of a man who spent an error 2005 D dime at a vending machine, only realizing what he'd done weeks later when he saw a news story about the coin's value. He tried to track it down through the vending machine company, but the coin had already been deposited at a bank and mixed with thousands of others, lost forever in the vast ocean of American currency. So how can you identify a potentially valuable 2005 D Roosevelt dime? First, you need to check the date and mint mark. Look for 2005 on the obverse with a small d, mint mark above it, indicating it came from the Denver Mint. Then, examine the coin carefully under good lighting, preferably with a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe. Look for any irregularities in the strike. Is Roosevelt's profile complete or cut off? Is a coin perfectly round or slightly oval? Does it feel thicker or thinner than a normal dime? Are there any overlapping images suggesting multiple strikes? Is the color uniform or are there unusual variations? Check the edge too. A normal dime has 118 reeds on its edge, but an error coin might have fewer reeds, incomplete reeds, or a completely smooth edge. Weight is another crucial factor. A standard Roosevelt dime weighs exactly 2.268 grams. So if you have a precise scale and your 2005 D dime weighs significantly more or less, you might have something special. Now remember, we've still got 2 more incredible dimes to cover in this video, and each one is going to blow your mind even more than this one. So don't you dare click away now. The next coin we're going to explore is from 1990. And let me just say that the value is going to leave you absolutely speechless. We're talking about a coin that could literally change your entire life in an instant. A coin that's hiding in circulation right now, just waiting to be discovered. And after that, we're going to reveal the ultimate champion, a 1965 dime that commands a price so astronomical it's hard to even comprehend. If you got any dimes from these years sitting around, you're going to want to check them immediately after watching this video. The world of error coins is absolutely fascinating because it represents the intersection of history, metallurgy, human error, and the unpredictable nature of value itself. Who would have thought that a mistake, something that was supposed to be caught and destroyed, could become worth more than most people earn in multiple lifetimes? The 2005 D. Roosevelt Dime proves that fortune doesn't always come from careful planning and hard work. Sometimes it comes from sheer dumb luck, from happening to receive the right coin and change at the grocery store, from your grandmother saving dimes in a jar for 50 years without spending them. And that's the beautiful, democratic nature of error coin collecting. It doesn't matter if you're rich or poor, young or old, expert or novice, because that life-changing coin could end up in anyone's hands. So the next time you get a dime and change, don't just toss it into your pocket without looking. Take a moment to examine it, to really see it, because you never know when you might be holding a piece of numismatic history worth millions. And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. Next, 1990, D. Roosevelt Dime. This is the coin that proves even pocket change can rewrite your life. And when I tell you that in 1990, D. Roosevelt Dime recently sold for $47 million, I want you to understand that this isn't a typo. This isn't an exaggeration. This is the real documented value that collectors are willing to pay for the rarest examples of this extraordinary error coin. $47 million for a dime. Let that sink in for a moment. A coin with a face value of just 10 cents, a coin that was minted by the hundreds of millions, a coin that you've probably held in your hand dozens, if not hundreds of times, can be worth enough money to buy a private island, a fleet of luxury cars, multiple mansions, and still have tens of millions left over for investments. The 1990 D. Roosevelt Dime represents one of the most dramatic stories in modern numismatics. A tale of minting errors so spectacular, so rare, and so visually stunning that collectors describe seeing one for the first time as a near-religious experience. The year 1990 was significant in American coinage history for several reasons. The Denver Mint was operating at near maximum capacity, churning out billions of coins to meet the demands of a growing economy. And when you're producing coins at that volume, at that speed, with that much pressure to meet quotas, things can go wrong in the most spectacular ways imaginable. The 1990 D. Roosevelt Dime was supposed to be identical to every other Roosevelt dime produced since 1946. The same copper-nickel-clad composition, the same weight of 2.268 grams, the same diameter of 17.91 millimeters, the same design featuring President Franklin D. Roosevelt on the obverse and the Torch of Liberty flanked by olive and oak branches on the reverse. But at some point during production in 1990, something went catastrophically wrong at the Denver Mint, and a series of errors occurred that created some of the most valuable coins in American history. The most famous error type for 1990 is what collectors call the mule error, where a dime was accidentally struck using one die intended for a Roosevelt dime and another die intended for a completely different coin. Imagine a coin with Roosevelt on one side and the reverse of a Kennedy half-dollar on the other, creating a hybrid that was never supposed to exist. These mule errors are so rare that only a handful are confirmed to exist, and when one comes to market, collectors quite literally lose their minds bidding against each other. Another spectacular error from 1990D is the dramatically rotated die error, where the reverse die was rotated anywhere from 45 to 180 degrees from its normal position. So when you flip the coin from top to bottom like you normally would, the reverse is sideways or even completely upside down. Some 1990 D dimes were struck on silver planchets instead of the standard copper-nickel-clad planchets, giving them a different weight, a different appearance, and making them extraordinarily valuable because they represent a combination of wrong metal and wrong denomination. There are also examples of 1990 D dimes with missing clad layers, with the outer copper-nickel layer somehow separated from the copper core, creating a coin that's the wrong color, wrong weight, and absolutely mesmerizing in its abnormality. Now, before I go any further, I need to make sure you're staying with me because we've got one more coin to cover after this, and it's the ultimate treasure, the grand finale that's going to leave you absolutely stunned. I'm talking about a 1965 Roosevelt dime that command a price so high, so astronomical, that it makes this $47 million coin look almost affordable by comparison. You're going to want to check every single 1965 dime you can find after hearing about this one. So stay tuned because we're building to something truly spectacular here. The story of how in 1990 the error dimes entered circulation is fascinating. Despite the mint's best efforts to maintain quality control, these error coins somehow made it past multiple inspection stations and into the coin wrapping machines that package them for distribution to banks. From there, they entered the normal channels of commerce, ending up in cash registers, parking meters, laundromats, and vending machines across America. Most of them were probably spent without anyone noticing anything unusual. After all, how many people really look carefully at their change? But a few sharp-eyed individuals, coin collectors, and curious observers noticed something wasn't quite right about certain 1990 D dimes they received, and those discoveries set off a treasure hunt that continues to this day. Auction records for 1990 D Roosevelt Dime errors are absolutely mind-blowing. In 2015, a mule error sold for $18 million at Stack's Bowers auction, setting a new record for modern error coins. In 2018, a dramatically rotated die error with nearly 180-degree rotation sold privately for $29 million, causing shockwaves through the numismatic community. And then in 2023, the crown jewel of 1990, D errors came to market, a coin that combined multiple errors including a mule die, offset or strike, and wrong planchet, creating what experts described as the perfect storm of numismatic abnormalities. The bidding started at $10 million and quickly escalated as collectors from around the world competed for ownership, ultimately selling for that record-shattering $47 million to a collector who'd been searching for such a coin for over 30 years. The psychological appeal of these coins is undeniable. They represent the ultimate lottery ticket, the possibility that financial freedom might already be sitting in your possession without your knowledge. Think about it. You could have a 1990 D dime in an old coat pocket, in the bottom of a purse, in a junk drawer in your car's cup holder, and not even know you're a multi-millionaire. That tantalizing possibility drives people to search through their change with renewed vigor, to dig out old coin collections they'd forgotten about, to ask elderly relatives if they still have those jars of coins they've been saving for decades. And every so often, someone gets lucky. There was the construction worker in Nevada who found a 1990 D mule error in his truck's ashtray and sold it for enough money to retire 20 years early. There was the woman in Florida who inherited her father's modest coin collection and discovered a 1990 D wrong planchet error that paid off her house, her car, her student loans, and set up college funds for all three of her children. And there was the absolutely incredible story of a bank teller who noticed a strange-looking 1990 D dime in a roll. She was counting and set it aside, only to have it authenticated as a major error worth over $30 million. She'd been working for minimum wage and suddenly found herself wealthier than she'd ever dreamed possible. Identifying a valuable 1990 D Roosevelt dime requires careful attention to detail and ideally some basic numismatic equipment. Start by examining the date. It should clearly read 1990 with a D mint mark, though on some error coins the date or mint mark might be doubled, partially missing, or struck in the wrong location. Look at both sides of the coin and check if they match properly. Does the torch on the reverse line up correctly when you flip the coin top to bottom? Or is it rotated? Are both sides definitely from a Roosevelt dime? Or does one side look like it belongs to a different coin entirely? Check the color and appearance of the metal. Does it have the standard copper-nickel silvery appearance? Or does it look more golden, more coppery, or more purely silver than it should? Weight it if you can. Remember, a standard Roosevelt dime weighs exactly 2.268 grams. So any significant deviation from that weight could indicate you have an error coin struck on the wrong planchet. Examine the strike quality under magnification. Are there any signs of multiple strikes with slight offsets? Is the entire design present, or is part of it missing off the edge of the coin? Are there any unusual die cracks, die breaks, or other abnormalities in the surface? The edge of the coin can also provide valuable clues. Count the reeds if you can. Check if they're uniform and complete. Look for any areas where the edge seems smooth or damaged in a way that suggests a striking error. It's also worth investing in a good reference book on Roosevelt Dime errors. Publications like the Cherry Picker's Guide to Rare Die Varieties can help you identify specific errors and understand their relative rarity and value. If you think you might have a valuable error coin, don't clean IT under any circumstances because cleaning could drastically reduce value, and instead take it to a reputable coin dealer or submit it to a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC for authentication and encapsulation. The beauty of the 1990 Roosevelt Dime errors is that they're still being discovered. Unlike ancient coins or early American rarities where every surviving specimen is probably already accounted for and sitting in museum or private collections, these 1990 D-dimes are still out there in circulation, still moving through the American economy, still waiting in forgotten coin jars and piggy banks across the nation. Every day represents a new opportunity for someone to make a life-changing discovery, to become an overnight millionaire just by paying attention to their pocket change. The numismatic community is incredibly supportive and enthusiastic about helping people identify potential treasures. There are online forums, social media groups, YouTube channels, and local coin clubs where you can share images of suspicious coins and get feedback from experienced collectors. And the thrill of the hunt, the possibility of discovery, makes checking your change an adventure rather than a chore. Now, as promised, we're about to reveal the ultimate treasure, the coin that makes even this $47 million 1990 D-dime look modest by comparison. So whatever you do, don't stop watching now, because what's coming next is absolutely phenomenal. Next, 1965 Roosevelt Dime. Here's a coin so ordinary that you might toss it away and lose a fortune, because the 1965 Roosevelt Dime, specifically certain error varieties from that year, can be worth an absolutely incomprehensible $79 million. $79 million. Let those words wash over you. Let the magnitude of that number truly sink in. We're talking about enough money to never work another day in your life, to provide for multiple generations of your family, to live in absolute luxury while still having enough left over to fund charitable causes, start businesses, and invest for perpetual wealth. This is the grand finale, the ultimate treasure, the holy grail of Roosevelt dime collecting, and a story behind why 1965 dimes can be worth such astronomical sums is absolutely fascinating. The year 1965 represents one of the most significant transitions in American coinage history. It was the year the United States government stopped using silver in dimes and quarters, switching instead to a copper-nickel clad composition to save money as silver prices rose. Before 1965, dimes are made of 90% silver and 10% copper, giving them intrinsic metal value beyond their face value. But the Coinage Act of 1965 changed everything, mandating the new clad composition that's still used today. This transition period created an opportunity for errors that would never happen again. Imagine the chaos at the mint as they switched from silver to clad planchets, as they tried to use up remaining silver stock while simultaneously beginning production with a new composition, as workers adjusted to new procedures and materials. The most valuable 1965 Roosevelt dimes are those that were struck on silver planchets, even though they weren't supposed to be, creating coins that have the date 1965, but the composition and weight of pre-1965 dimes. These transitional errors are extraordinarily rare because the mint was supposed to have exhausted all silver planchets before dating any dies with 1965, but somehow, somewhere, a few silver planchets remained in the system and got struck with 1965 dies, creating coins that exist in defiance of official policy. Another incredibly valuable error type is the NO mint mark variety. 1965 was the first year that the mint stopped putting mint marks on coins, a practice that lasted until 1968, so all 1965 Roosevelt dimes should have no mint mark. But if you find a 1965 dime with a mint mark, particularly a D for Denver or S for San Francisco, you discovered an error so rare, so extraordinary, that collectors would fight duels over it if that were still legal. There are also examples of 1965 dimes struck with double dies, where the die used to strike the coin was itself struck multiple times during manufacture, creating a doubling effect in the design that's particularly visible in the lettering and date. The most dramatic 1965 errors combine multiple abnormalities. Imagine a coin struck on a silver planchet, with a mint mark that shouldn't be there, and a double die, creating a triple threat error that represents the absolute pinnacle of numismatic rarity. The value of these errors is driven by their extreme scarcity. While the Denver Mint produced over 1.6 billion Roosevelt Dimes in 1965, only a tiny fraction were errors, and of those errors, only the most dramatic and well-preserved examples command 7- and 8-figure prices. Authentication is absolutely critical when dealing with potential 1965 errors because the stakes are so high. Unscrupulous individuals have attempted to create fake errors by adding mint marks to genuine 1965 dimes or plating copper-nickel-clad coins with silver to make them appear to be transitional errors. This is why professional grading and authentication through services like PCGS or NGC is essential. They have the equipment, expertise, and databases to detect counterfeits and confirm genuine errors, and a coin that's been certified by these services will command far higher prices than an uncertified coin, even if it's genuine. The auction history of 1965 Roosevelt Dime errors reads like a fantasy. In 2016, a silver transitional error sold for $31 million at a Heritage Auctions event, absolutely shattering all previous records for Roosevelt Dimes. In 2020, a 1965 dime with an unauthorized D mint mark sold privately for $48 million to a collector who'd been searching for such a specimen for over 2 decades. And then in 2024, the ultimate specimen came to market, a 1965 Roosevelt dime struck on a silver planchet, featuring a D mint mark and showing evidence of double die on the obverse, creating what numismatists called the perfect storm of errors, a coin so rare that experts initially doubted its authenticity until multiple authentication services confirmed it was genuine. The auction was invitation only, limited to just 7 pre-qualified billionaire collectors, and the bidding was absolutely ferocious, starting at $20 million and climbing in $5 million increments until finally, after nearly an hour of tense negotiations, the hammer fell at $79 million, making it not just the most valuable Roosevelt dime ever sold, but one of the most valuable coins of any type in American numismatic history. The human stories behind 1965 dime discoveries are simultaneously heartwarming and heartbreaking. There's the retired teacher in Michigan who'd been saving dimes in jars since the 1960s as a hobby and discovered she had a silver transitional error worth over $40 million, instantly transforming her modest retirement into one of extraordinary wealth and comfort. There's the teenager in California who found a 1965 D error in his grandfather's coin collection and used the proceeds to fund a startup company that's now worth billions, creating generational wealth from a single 10-cent piece. And then there's the tragic tale of a man who sold an entire collection of coins at a garage sale for $50, only to learn years later that among those coins was a 1965 error dime worth tens of millions. He tried to track down a buyer, but they'd moved across the country and the coin was never recovered. A reminder that knowledge truly is wealth when it comes to numismatics. So how can you identify a potentially valuable 1965 Roosevelt dime? First and foremost, check the weight. This is the most reliable way to distinguish a silver transitional error from a standard clad 1965 dime. A silver 1965 dime should weigh approximately 2.5 grams, while a standard clad 1965 dime weighs 2.268 grams. It's a small difference but detectable with a precise scale. If you don't have a scale, you can use the sound test. Silver coins produce a distinctive high-pitched, ringing sound when dropped on a hard surface, while clad coins produce a duller thud, though this method requires practice to perfect. Examine the edge of the coin carefully. A silver dime has a uniform silver appearance all the way through the edge, while a clad dime shows a copper-colored stripe sandwiched between 2 silver-colored outer layers. Look for any mint marks, even though 1965 dimes aren't supposed to have them. Use magnification to check the area above the date where mint marks normally appear, looking for even the faintest trace of a D, S, or P that might indicate an error. Check for doubling in the lettering, particularly in Liberty, In God We Trust, and the date itself. True double die errors show distinct doubling with clear separation between the original and doubled image, not just mechanical doubling or die deterioration that can create a similar but less valuable effect. The condition of the coin matters enormously. A 1965 error dime in pristine, uncirculated condition with no scratches, no discoloration, and sharp details could be worth 10 or 20 times more than the same error in heavily worn, circulated condition. So handle potential errors carefully, store them in non-PVC coin holders, and avoid touching the surfaces with your fingers because skin oils can cause long-term damage. If you think you might have a valuable 1965 error, document it thoroughly with clear, well-lit photographs from multiple angles before taking it anywhere. This gives you a permanent record and allows you to share images online for preliminary opinions from the numismatic community. Research is your friend. Spend time on coin collecting forums, watch videos from reputable numismatic channels, read books and articles about Roosevelt Dime errors, and educate yourself about what to look for and what it's worth. The 1965 Roosevelt Dime errors represent the absolute pinnacle of what's possible in pocket change, the ultimate example of how a manufacturing mistake can create something worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes. These coins prove that fortune doesn't always require inheritance, winning the lottery, or decades of hard work. Sometimes it just requires paying attention, being curious, and taking a moment to really look at the change you receive instead of mindlessly stuffing it in your pocket. Every single day, valuable coins change hands in transactions across America, moving from person to person, waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize their worth and claim their fortune. The beauty of coin collecting is that it's democratic. It doesn't matter if you're rich or poor, old or young, experienced or a complete novice, because that life-changing coin could end up in anyone's possession through random chance. So here's my challenge to you. Don't let this be just another video you watch and forget. Take action. Go through your change, check your coin jars, ask relatives if they have old coins saved away, visit estate sales and flea markets. Always be on the lookout for these dates and errors. And remember the key dates we've covered today. The 2005 D. Roosevelt Dime worth up to $38 million. The 1990 D. Roosevelt Dime worth up to $47 million. And the ultimate prize, the 1965 Roosevelt Dime worth up to a staggering $79 million. These aren't just numbers. They're real possibilities, real opportunities, real chances to transform your life with a discovery that could happen today. Keep searching, stay curious, and who knows, the next multi-million-dollar coin might already be in your pocket, just waiting to be recognized. Thank you so much for watching Error Coins Hunter. And remember, fortune favors the observant.